Oh, that was awkward. I thought I was going to roll the intro. Sorry. I was slacking. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hot Routez NFL show, joined by my co-host, Matthew Coller, as always, here Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern every week. Matthew joining us from the Purple Insider podcast, where you can find him. He also dropped a book a couple weeks ago. Everybody make sure you're checking out the Football is a Numbers Game book. I got it right here. It's a beaut. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing good. It is been pretty cool. Thank you very much for holding that up. It's been very cool to get people actually now enough time to have bought it and read it and sending me messages and giving me their kind of reactions to all the things in the book. So I will try not to spend too much time self-promoting, but it's been fun. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. And also I had to have eye surgery so I wouldn't gouge them out after watching football this weekend. Was this not maybe the ugliest football? So, of course, I covered the Vikings and Chicago game in Chicago. Horrible, terrible. Hope I never have to see anything like it again. And then I think, okay, well, this will be nice. I'll get home and I'll do some of my work during Sunday Night Football. This will be fun. And so from a Chicago hotel, I watched one of the worst games I've ever seen. And then last night, okay, now this has to be good. It's shootout time. It's Chargers. It's Cowboys. It's Monday night. And then it was a flag festival where Justin Herbert could not contain where he was throwing the football. It was a weird and ugly week.
It certainly was. Fortunately, I think if we've looked at the slates of games the last couple weeks, it has been a little bit like, there's not a whole lot going on this week. But I think this upcoming week has some really nice heavy hitters, especially in those more like primetime windows. So hopefully some good football to look forward to. We have 5 great topics here today, and I think the best one today is the one you suggested and the one I want to start with. And that is quarterback play kind of being down around the league here. I don't know if you have any numbers on this, but I checked just before we started here. Quarterback rating is the lowest it's been since 2017 in the NFL, and yards per attempt the lowest since 2008. So definitely seeing some quarterbacks struggling, and we just want to talk a little bit about maybe why passing is down this year. What do you want to start with on this one, Matthew?
Well, theories. Let's throw out our theories. Number one is that the top quarterbacks in the league have kind of been going through it this year. Patrick Mahomes' receivers don't know what to do, where to run, how to catch the football. That hurts. Josh Allen has been kind of a turnover machine from the start. Joe Burrow's calf got injured. Again, the best guys who we assume are going to put out 110 quarterback ratings and huge touchdown totals and all that have just not really been that great. And some of it is evened out by, Tua being as awesome as he's been, Brock Purdy, and so forth. But it hasn't been those core guys driving it. My other theory is that in 2020, passing went berserk. It was maybe the easiest passing year in history. And so all these defensive minds had to get in the lab and figure out what is it that's causing all these explosive plays. A lot of down the field passing was succeeding in 2020. The bootlegs, the play actions were crushing that year. And there was also no fans that may have played into it, but I don't think so. I think it was more of a scheme thing. So I think that defensive minds have spent the last couple of years trying to resolve the explosive play problem, and that has resulted in a lot more short and underneath and dink and dunk type of passing games as everybody kind of adopts this theory of let's keep everything in front of us. And that's resulted in long drives and time of possession and running games, dictating things, but a lot less, hey, let's drop back, run a play action against single high safety and just throw a bomb and get a bunch of yards. That's a couple of theories. There's probably more that I'll leave to you, but that's at the top of my mind for why quarterback play is down.
Yeah, I would piggyback off you on some of the scheme talk there, because you're absolutely right. We saw this boom of quarters and two high structures around that 2020 period when Allen and Mahomes and some of these quarterbacks were just launching deep balls left and right. And, the Fangio defense took over the league, and we saw this quarter is like play top down. But then we've seen, as always, the league's going to zig when others zag. And we've seen, the run game and the short passing game, like you said, but that kind of hit the defenses the wrong way last year. I think we witnessed it with the Vikings last year, the Browns, the Packers. A lot of these teams running these schemes were just getting gashed against the run, and they've had to make adjustments this year. The Browns and Vikings have gone to more aggressive attacking defenses. We see the Jets, who kind of have been a very quarters heavy team. They're running more cover one on third down than ever. I think during the last 3 years, teams learned how to deploy quarters and when not to deploy quarters. Because I think for a couple of years, they would, a lot of teams would just run these soft zones. And I think we're just seeing a lot more defensive coordinators being smarter about it. And it's just presenting a lot of challenges for offenses right now. And it's kind of like the zig is on the defense's side right now in terms of the scheme always kind of trading back and forth in the NFL. A couple other things I wrote down about this is, if you think back to this offseason, there were so many great defensive coordinators just sitting around ready to be hired. And I think the league has kind of woken up to, it's probably best to have an offensive minded head coach. But I think it's allowed these defensive coordinators to find really good homes where they're staying in place and developing. You look at like the Chiefs and the Bengals right now with like Lou Anarumo and who's the Chiefs D coordinator? I can't think of it right now.
Spagnuolo, Steve Spagnuolo.
Thank you, Spagnuolo.
We're both wearing red. We can't leave that.
We are. Yeah. They spent so much time with these defenses, and Dan Quinn in Dallas, like these guys are going nowhere, right? They're not going to get a head coach offer because they've been through that. So I think we're seeing some of that. And I also think that we have some just incredibly well-built defenses at this point in time that are presenting some huge issues for some of these top quarterbacks right now. I mean, I don't remember there being this big of a debate for like who these elite defenses are. I mean, the Browns are doing some remarkable stuff. We've talked about them throughout this show. They're kind of like an all-decade level defense, but they're overshadowing the Niners and the Jets and the Cowboys. And the Steelers all have still incredible defenses that would stack up with any of the defenses, in my opinion, over the last 4 years. So we also just have this window of defensive performance in the NFL. And then you throw on top of that, like you said, the top quarterbacks aren't performing. We're coming off a year where 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks from last year, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, are not here playing. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it's definitely real. Like the football that we're watching right now is sloppier and more defensive oriented than we've been used to for a while.
Yeah, I definitely think defensive minds have played into it. And even like Saleh and Sean McDermott, like being head coaches, they have always excelled as defensive minds. But I'm so impressed with Sean McDermott and the way that his defense has played this year. I mean, they're really the only ones to handle the Miami Dolphins. And it was really hideous to watch Tyrod Taylor. Although, hey, maybe McDermott coached it up that if someone gets open on that end of the gameplay, you just grab them and hope the refs don't call it. But I think that is a little bit of it too, that people got a little exhausted of pass interference debates all the time. And it feels like, and this is one you'd have to look at the data, but it feels like the corners are being allowed to play more physically against the receivers than I can remember in years past, where there's a lot of plays. It's not just that it's the deep ball that goes up and somebody falls into somebody and they throw a flag. It's this guy is 8 yards down the field and he's got somebody pushing on him and pulling on him. It's the jersey grabbing. It's like they have figured out a lot of ways to be physical. And I think you mentioned it too. Some of these defenses just landed a bunch of great players all at once. Dallas is a really good example of that. The New York Jets, they were drafting high for a long time. And then the Vikings said, hey, we don't want to pay Zadarius Smith and Delvin Tomlinson. So the Browns were just able to bring in 2 really great players out of nowhere and stack up their D-line. offensive line play is probably the worst I can remember it in most cities. And they're getting dominated by these D lines, which may be an element of, for years, if you're the freaky athlete, you're not putting on 50 more pounds of playing offensive line. You're probably going to chase the quarterback, and everything is designed to chase the quarterback now. Teams have thrown a lot of caution to the wind with the run game. That's an analytical element as well, to have a 280-pound defensive tackle will just go after the quarterback. The other thing is, too, teams are very comfortable losing. And I don't think that tanking has always truly existed, as in like being pervasive across the league, or there might be one team where you're like, oh my God, like they're so bad. But
Yeah.
there's like a lot of teams that are thinking about their bigger picture here, and a lot of teams that are jamming young quarterbacks into position. There is no way Bryce Young would still be playing quarterback if this was 15 years ago. They would have benched him. They would have played Andy Dalton. They would have moved on. But and I guess they're the wrong team to pick since the Bears have their draft pick. But I think there's an element of young quarterbacks just play, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't bench them. And there's not too many journeymen who get their chance if a quarterback is struggling. That used to be a thing that happens. It doesn't so much anymore. And the confluence of all of these things has caused a lot of bad quarterback play around the league.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other note I had was the 16 out of 32 teams run some form of offense that is from the Shanahan style system. So a lot of use of wide zone and play action. And I think because this has been really just spreading throughout the league for so long, it's just like, easy reps at this point for a lot of these defenses to defend wide zone and defend play action. And they've really evolved how to defend that type of system. So I think some of those easy buttons that a lot of offenses have had success with over the last couple of years, they've had to kind of pivot and find new wrinkles too. So that's just another note on top of it. I think we hit everything. I mean, there really are a large list of reasons for it. Do you want to move on to our next topic?
Yeah, we can. I just wanted to say that it's one of the things I love about football so much is that
Mhm.
historically, every time you think, okay, passing's taking over, it's never going to be the same. Even in the early 2000s, late 90s, where you had Greatest Show on Turf, Randy Moss comes into the league, offenses look like they're going to go nuts. And only a few years later, we're talking about the greatest running backs and Sean Alexander and so forth, Priest Holmes, these dominant running backs. So I love that about the league. And I feel like they never let it fully go into just like Mac college football mode. And there's always going to be a huge defensive element to it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about here, our second out of 5 topics, is the Superlatives Awards Show. And I love my superlatives on this channel. And basically, I have written down 5 awards that we're going to hand out here. Breakout Offensive Player of the Year, Breakout Defensive Player of the Year, Most Disappointing Player in the NFL, Breakout Team of the Year, and Most Disappointing Team. So those are going to be the 5 superlatives that we do here. I will go ahead and start with the Breakout Offensive Player. And I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert for the Miami Dolphins. And by the way, I went about this with no rookies being available, because there's a lot of great rookies breaking out too. But Raheem Mostert has just blown me away with, I mean, how often do we talk about running backs getting worse with age? How 28 years old is like when the pin drops and everything sucks. You Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon seem like a shell of their old self. But Raheem Mostert is 32 years old. I should have confirmed this. I think he's 32. But the dude all he's done is he's 31. But all he's done is get stronger without compromising speed. The ability to stay healthy has held him back throughout his whole career, yet he's been durable. He's running with power, vision. He's been awesome in the receiving game. I mean, every single week, I don't even know what his stats are. I know they're good, but every single week, he's just all over the red zone channel when the Dolphins are playing. And to me, he's broken out as like one of the premium backs in the NFL. Like, honestly, there's no knocks on his game at this point other than he's 31 years old, but he's only getting better with age. And he's my pick for offensive breakout.
For the old school fan, he's like a Daryl Green who retained his speed. Most players, when they get older, they start to have their speed drift a little bit, and that has not been the case with Mostert. I used to always pick him up on Madden because he would have like 98 speed, and so
Hmm.
if you got that, you could do a lot of things. And who's better for that group than to have somebody with that kind of speed? What's really amazing to me is how Mike McDaniel is able to get these guys in space up to full speed. So I
Hmm.
saw a stat from Next Gen that had the fastest player in the Vikings Bears game only went like 17 miles an hour.
Oh my
And every
gosh.
game with the Dolphins, when you search the fastest anybody ran the whole week, it's like Dolphin, 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 because they're getting him in so much space so it can highlight what he can do. I went with a guy who hasn't been around as long. I also did not pick rookies for this. That's obvious. Like,
Yeah.
when would they have had a chance to break out other than now? I went with Nico Collins because I remember watching Nico Collins a little bit in college and thinking, like, okay,
Right.
a guy, whatever. And he has, through his first 2 years, been, a guy, whatever. And this year, he has been a main target of CJ Stroud. He was probably better than, this before, or, you know what I mean? Better than he looked before by his numbers because the quarterback play was so poor with the Texans. But now that he's got a quarterback who can deliver the ball into tight windows, Nico Collins is just catching absolutely everything and is becoming a fantasy football household name, which I think is pretty cool for a guy to go from what did he have, like 30 catches or something last year, to
Yeah, it
now
wasn't
being
much.
a main center of that passing game.
Yeah, it's a great pick. He was my number 2 as well. The other guy on my list was Brandon Ayuk, or my 3. But yeah, Nico's incredible, man. And I remember being lower on him coming out, and the first couple years was kind of like you said. It was just like, yeah, right. Yeah, he's just a big bodied wide receiver, dime a dozen. Thought the one thing he had coming out was like he did move more fluid than you would expect for such a big receiver, and that's like I think I saw today he leads the NFL in forced tackle missed tackles forced per PFF by receivers, and I'm questioning that because Debo had like 9 in a game, but maybe that's if Debo's a running back. I don't know, but the fact that he's so big and so fluid and can make guys miss on top of being kind of like a Mike Williams, T. Higgins level big body target for Stroud. He is a true number 1 right now, at least in terms of how he's been playing. So that's a great pick. Um, I'll give you the first pick for defensive breakout.
Okay, I think what we need to do in the future with linebackers is we need to give them like 3 years, because when Patrick Queen first came into the league, I was like, this guy is running around with his head cut off. He has no idea where he's going or what's going on. Now, every time I watch the Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Queen is making plays, and he had a great week in this last game. So there's a little like recency bias on my part, but I also did double check, did a little fact check background, looking at what other people were saying about Patrick Queen. This seems to be his big breakout year. And that Baltimore defense is legit, I think, in major part because of Patrick Queen. So we need to always be patient. And I did think about saying Fred Warner here because the universe seems to be finding out about Fred Warner, but Fred Warner's been good. He's not breaking out. You're only discovering him more as broadcasts start to, in the, what is it, third or fourth year of his career, be like, this Fred Warner kid's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's kind of been that way. So there's a little bit of somebody emerging onto the scene and starting to get noticed. But I think Queen was legitimately bad over his first couple years and now is having a great season.
Yeah, Queen, like he started to come on the second Roquan showed up last year too. He had a really rough start to last year, like the first 4 or 5 weeks. I was talking about they need to bench him because he was so bad, and then they traded for Roquan. And ever since then, he's been like legitimately good. I love what you said about being patient with linebackers. I've said this on my channel before. Like I think it has reached a point where it's arguably the hardest position in the NFL to be good at right away, even more than quarterback. Like I actually kind of believe that because teams are doing so many things to help these quarterbacks schematically and get easy reads and stuff. But linebackers, all these modern schemes are systematically designed to attack these young linebackers. You have to defend play action, still be able to get depth while also defending the run. You have to read out route combinations. You have to have the size to thump and the speed to cover, because defenses are running 4-2 as their base defense all around the league. You have to take on more blocks and cover more. It's just, they're asked so many different things. It's virtually impossible for these young linebackers to step into the league and play well. And credit to Patrick Queen for kind of pairing his physical tools with the mental side. So I love that pick. I wrote down a bunch of names. The one guy I really want to highlight is Max Crosby, who I just think has kind of like had a breakout year like 3 years in a row, but he just keeps climbing a level. Like, I felt like last year he joined like the tier 2 of pass rushers, with like Joey Bosa and Hassan Reddick and, that group. This year, it's like this dude is right there with Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. Like, he is taking over games. The Raiders defense is somehow relevant because of him. He's insane. It kind of speaks for itself, but he was like my number one pick. But a couple smaller name guys I want to shout out. Aleem McNeil for the Detroit Lions has been a huge part of their ability to shut down the run and just do all of the different things they do up front. He has really grown since he came into the league. He wasn't bad to start, but he came into the league at like 340 pounds, I think, and now he's down to like 310. So he's able to move and just do a lot of different things in that front while still playing the run well, which is really impressive. The other guy I wrote down was Blake Cashman, who we're both familiar with, played for the Minnesota Gophers. This one is a biased pick for me because I had him as my number 2 linebacker in that draft, ahead of other Big Ten linebacker Devin Bush, who completely flamed out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going to wave my victory flag on this, 3 or 4 years later. He is PFF's number 1 graded linebacker in the NFL, Blake Cashman. And he has been DeMeco Ryans' dude on that defense. And you can't watch a Texans game without noticing what he's doing. He's flying to the ball against the run, and he had a huge interception against Trevor Lawrence in that Jags game. Just doing, good two-way linebacker play. The other guy is Carl Granderson for the Saints, who's been a nice late career, kind of got a big contract and has been sort of their number 1 edge guy in New Orleans.
Yeah, I think the only question here is, can you use Max Crosby, because he has been very, very good, but it does seem to be taking it to even another level, where I remember that game that he played against the Chargers, where it was like every snap he was getting after Justin Herbert, and now it's felt like it's that every time you see him, it's like that. Another guy that I want to throw out there, and I'll be honest, I had heard this guy before, but never thought anything about him aside from his name in Miami, Andrew Van Ginkel. He's having a great year. He's got a ton of pressures. He's playing a huge role for their defense. He's doing a lot of different things for them. Like, he's dropping back in coverage. He's rushing the passer. He's become this kind of hybrid, like outside linebacker, kind of how they used to be with outside linebackers, where they would blitz sometimes, cover sometimes. He's doing a lot of different things. And every time I've watched Miami, he's really stuck out to me. And that's another one where, yes, I did go to the PFF grades and double check this, because he was making plays in one game. I was like, who the heck? Like, do I know this guy? And I mean, if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, you've heard of him before, and he's had some moments before, but he's one of the highest graded PFF players in the league right now. And I would not have guessed that before. So shout out to Andrew Van Ginkel.
Absolutely,
great stuff, buddy.
Man. Yeah, he won on a swim move. I don't remember what game it was, but he beat I think it was a good tackle on like a swim move for a good pressure or a sack. And I was like, okay, Andrew Van Ginkel, like I didn't know you had, or a spin move rather. I didn't know you had that in your tool belt. All right, our next one is going to be most disappointing player, and I have 2 players here. I'm curious if you went the same direction, but I'll just pick one. I'm gonna go Mac Jones for the Patriots. They have issues. Their offensive line's been bad. Their, receivers have no juice at all. But Mac Jones is compounding the problem. The last few weeks, it's really felt like he's just kind of like gone rogue. Like he had a couple interceptions this week where he's rolling out to the right. He's trying to make like a crossbody throw, and he just completely overthrows Henry. And it's like, you can't really make that throw, Mac. Like, you're not Justin Herbert. You're not Patrick Mahomes. And then he had one that was even worse, where he throws it back, like he's scrambling, and he looks over to the left, like way across the field, and he tries to throw it to a receiver that's just like sitting in the flat. And it gets tossed for a pick six. And it's like, man, he is trying way too much and compounding the issue there. And it just, I would be, honestly, it's at the point where I don't know that he finishes the year as the starter for them, and I would be stunned if he is the quarterback for the Patriots next year.
I did have Mac Jones, yes, on my list, and I remember maybe the first show we did, I tried to make an argument of, hey, like last year it was Matt Patricia calling the offense miserable, and I think Mac Jones gonna bounce back. No, that was incorrect, sir. He has not only not bounced back, but I think Mac Jones is such a great example of how there are a number of quarterbacks who, when given the exact right situation, and it feels like it's almost become a cliche to talk about, but it's true. Where with Mac Jones, if you put him on team X, you put him on team Y, he's going to be pretty good. I don't know if he can get you anywhere deep in the playoffs, but he's going to be pretty good. I think he's got the skill to do that. But if things go wrong, this dude is bad. He is just straight up bad. He has horrendous receivers, as bad of a receiving core as there's been in the NFL in the last decade. He has a bad offensive line. He has a coach that's probably lost it at this point in Bill Belichick. This screams to me Ryan Tannehill, Adam Gase in 2000. What was that? 18.
Mm-hmm.
Where Ryan Tannehill graded like a 40 by PFF that year after generally being like an okay quarterback, and it just all fell completely apart. And if somebody picks him up, I think he's got a chance, depending on the situation, to be an okay quarterback. Maybe he ends up being a Ryan Fitzpatrick that is traveling from team to team, or an Andy Dalton. But Andy Dalton might be the best comparison for him. Very limited, but also talented enough in the right situation. But yeah, he was at the top of my list. I also had TJ Hawkinson, local angle, second in the NFL in drops this year, has not had any impact whatsoever as a blocker, has not gone down the field at all. I mean, I know that he caught like a 20-yard pass on Sunday, but aside from that, he's been averaging like 7 yards of completion. That is unacceptable for a guy that you made one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. And so I had to put him up there. Also, Tyler Boyd. Like what happened there?
Yeah.
And maybe it's Burrow. Maybe the Burrow injury was part of it.
He did
but
have a
he's
good
another
game this
guy who's
last week.
averaging. Yeah, he's averaging like 6 yards a carry overall, though. So that's a big disappointment for him.
I can hear my neighbor in the back is like, say it louder for the people in the back about TJ Hawkinson, because every time I go let my dog out or I'm out mowing the yard, he like wants to come in and rant about TJ Hawkinson and how bad he played. So that's definitely real. Good picks there. Our next superlative is breakout team on the season. I'll give you the first pick on this one.
Can I ask a real quick question just about disappointing players?
Yes.
Are we allowed to say Jalen Hurts, or is that not fair?
You're absolutely allowed. I didn't think about him, but I've been pretty harsh on Hurts. And yeah, let's talk about Hurts for a second. Like I totally agree. I think he's, for what you paid him, for a guy that was in MVP conversations last year, for a team that's expecting to win the Super Bowl this year, that has the best roster in the NFL. He's played like the 13th, 14th best quarterback in the league and just played a horrendous game, costing his team the game. Yeah, I think you're absolutely allowed to say that on Jalen Hurts, especially because he's a guy that had such a kind of anomaly season last year.
Right. And if you go back and look at quarterback tiers, quarterback rankings going into the season, I think most people would have put him as a top 5 quarterback. And he's definitely not played like a top 5 quarterback. He's had his moments. And when they played, Washington, he hit some big throws to A.J. Brown. When he plays the Vikings, there's a couple of explosives there.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been really as consistent where it was last year, where it felt like he was on time throwing the football a lot more. Not always, but a lot more. And he was having like much more of an impact as even just a straight drop back passer with no help. Drop back, find your guy, throw the ball. It's been a little bit shaky, a little bit hesitant this year. And the interception against the Jets. I mean, all respect to Robert Saleh's wonderful defense. They are a fun group to watch. There's 2 gentlemen standing right in front of you, and you just throw the ball when you're winning. I mean, like, I know good teams lose games. It happens. But that was one he completely gave away. And I mean, you don't expect that from somebody who's being talked about as that top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, he has real warts like on his tape. He doesn't have the most natural pocket presence. Like he loves to bail from clean pockets. Sometimes he'll stand like he has all these like super like 5-6 second pockets. He trusts it a lot of times, but sometimes like there's a play in that Jets game where he's trying to make a throw, he's getting hit, and it's like you're not sensing the pressure because he mostly hasn't had to, right? In college, he could outrun everybody, and since he's been in Philadelphia, he's had the best O line in the league. He's had some missed throws this year. He's missed reads, like just he's had wide open wide receivers that he's instead choosing to force the ball elsewhere. Yeah, it has not been a good year for Jalen Hurts. I think you can absolutely say that. All right,
I forgot
going
what
to
our category was.
breakout team. Breakout team is
Oh,
the next one. You can take this
breakout
one away.
team. Yeah. Oh wait, is it breakout team or is it is that
That's
is
what
that
I had
right?
down. What did you think? What
Oh,
did you think was coming?
breakout team. I think I had a different idea of like I thought we were stocks of teams. Were we doing stocks for teams or we got breakout
Yeah,
teams?
that's
Okay.
our next topic. That's our next topic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's the teams that I wrote down.
Okay.
Are we like is there any other choice than the Lions? Like I don't know. I mean, they're a 9-8 team last year. And now they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And I saw on Twitter that people are mad at you.
Yes.
Maybe you didn't rank them high enough. You should rank them higher. Wherever you have them, put them higher. The Lions are legit, man. Jared Goff, 13-4 in his last 17 games. I mean, that team, they are powerful. And if Jamison Williams is going to do some of the stuff he did the other day and be a threat for them deep, then Josh Reynolds becomes 3, Khalif Raymond becomes 4, and all of a sudden you're cooking with gas. So I think they are, even though it was sort of predicted that they might be, they are the breakout team so far.
Yeah. I mean, you're revving up the chat. They're gonna love you here in that. Love hear you saying that. I went with the Houston Texans. Welcome to relevancy, Houston. Nothing crazy necessarily, but you got a coach, you got a quarterback, you're winning games where you're an underdog, and you're sitting here kind of in the middle of the league. Like it's just, they have waited so long for this. This is why they made the trade up to go get a star defensive player, a star offensive player. Will Anderson has really heated up lately. It's all just kind of working. They're right where they want to be. And I don't think there's a single sad Houston Texans fan out there.
They are the dream tank, which
Mm-hmm.
is you go to the bottom, you fire your coaches who don't know what they're doing. You hire a great coach because he sees the writing on the wall, or because no one else hired him because the NFL has coaching hiring problems, and D'Amico Ryans
And you
was
get lucky
deserving.
because he played for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and he played for you and whatever. And then you select a quarterback at the top, and just so happens that you pick the right guy.
Yeah.
And do you remember those stories? This is how funny it is. And this will, this is a conversation for down the road about the draft and everything else and how random it can be. There were stories that the ownership in Houston demanded that they drafted CJ Stroud. Like the you don't even get a choice. You want to pick Will Anderson, too bad. You're picking CJ Stroud and you deal with it. You figure it out. And then he's wonderful. And like they didn't even want to. And then they get to take all the credit for it. Maybe that's like the rumor. And then
Mm-hmm.
they trade up and everyone says, you guys are a bunch of dingbats. Why would you trade draft picks to get Will Anderson? Oh, because he's amazing. So I actually like thought, well, I don't know like analytically if that's right, but I kind of love it because this guy's so good last year. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for teams of the future, the Houston Texans, see, that's why I was thinking, like, wait, are we doing
Yeah.
the stock thing?
Yeah.
Because
Well, you'll get
that's why I
another
got
chance.
confused because that
Yeah.
also might be one of my stock picks. But you are selecting the team of the future that their stock is just going to keep rising, that they have been a breakout. And we forget so fast how garbage they've been. I mean,
Exactly.
no hope, dreadful. There's no reason to even think they're in the National Football League. Their jerseys aren't even good. It's a big problem. And now all of a sudden, we're looking at them as, oh, yeah, you should do it just like the Texans. The
Yeah.
Texans way, I've always said.
You and everybody else. And then most disappointing team is the other one here. And maybe we should do this one a little bit quicker because there probably will be overlap with the next topic here. But I had the Chicago Bears. I mean, they had this unbelievable hype train coming into the year. You got people on ESPN saying they're going to win 12 games, win the division. Justin Fields leading the NFL in MVP voting. Bears fans all over the apps, like, and it's just been a complete dumpster fire from the first snap, like seriously. And it's very self-explanatory, but I don't know what other direction you go with other than them.
Here's what you have to give Bears fans. The best time of their year for like a really long time is June, when they argue that their bad quarterback will soon be good. So,
Yeah.
so they've got that going for them. And after watching Justin Fields miss opportunity after opportunity because he has tunnel vision and can't see anything, I think that experiment is probably over at this point. There's a lot of candidates here, though. I was bouncing this one back and forth between, is Denver actually disappointing or just the same as they were last year? So I think you have to go with, in part, because we knew this was possible, that Sean Payton would not have magic pixie dust to turn this team around. I think it's the New York Giants. When you
Mhm.
win a playoff game, somehow people voted for Brian Daboll as coach of the year last year, despite
Hey.
Sean McDermott winning 13 games and having a player die on the field and having to be resuscitated. I don't know. The voting's weird, but they were the most obvious bogus playoff winner last year, and they showed it. But I think after getting Darren Waller, they got some defensive upgrades. They were thinking, all right, well, we know we were a little bit of a smoke and mirror, but see, we did these things. And then when you give your quarterback $40 million and he comes out and gets sacked on every play and then is hurt and can't play. I mean, I think there's no bigger disappointment there, because I believe their fans truly would have thought, not just hopes and dreams like Chicago, truly would have thought, oh yeah, we should be right back in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Daniel Jones thing is it right there. Like, cause that's a long-term disappointment too. That's like, oh dang, we're stuck with this guy for more than this year, probably. I will defend Brian Daboll though last year. I think what they look like this year just shows how good of a coaching job he did last year. But that's neither here nor there. Obviously not doing a great job this year. That's for sure. Um,
Well, I think he did a fine job. I just didn't like understand when there were a lot of good coaching jobs last year. But it's always whoever did better than people thought they were going to do
yeah,
gets that
exactly.
award.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
weird award for sure. But yeah, you hinted at our next topic here, so I'll explain kind of what I was thinking on this one. So this is the idea of this kind of was sparked from, I think there's an app, free marketing here for them. I think it's called Mojo, I think, where you can like buy and sell like player stock, just basically based on like public perception and performance and all that. You can buy them at any point, you can sell them at any point. So I was like, what if we did this for NFL teams where we're both going to pick 3 for buying, 3 for selling, and we don't necessarily know what their prices are, but just basically like their price is whatever the public perception of these teams are. So we're just trying to invest in who's trending up, who's trending down. Um, I will give you the first. We'll just bounce back and forth, but I'll give you the first pick for buying teams.
I think we already talked about them. I'll just take the Houston Texans.
Yeah,
Quarterback, they're going to have cap space. They're just in a great rebuilding situation with a really good coach, it looks like. And I think they're going to get better throughout the year. And I think they're going to get better into the future and potentially be a very, very dangerous team. So I will buy their stock for just the immediate future, not just this year, which I assume that's kind of what we were doing, is like not
yeah,
just, hey, do I think they'll make the playoffs or something? I'm not sure, but the long term, first pick, Houston Texans.
yeah, yeah. It could be a long-term investment or a short-term investment where you think inside the individual season they're being slept on a little bit and could finish stronger than people are thinking right now. And that's going to be my buy here. And I'm doubling down on this one. It was my Super Bowl pick coming into the year, but I'm going to buy the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow looks healthy. He's dancing around in the pocket. He's playing with confidence. The second half of that game was a little weird, but I think that's why it's a good time to buy, because they had a couple disconnects on some passes that they're normally good on. You had the young corner for Seattle, Trey Brown, made 2 incredible pass breakups on third down on what Joe Burrow was anticipating to be open for Jamar Chase. So I think heading into the bye week here for the Bengals, you got a defense that's playing great with Lou Anarumo, a group that continues to just not get the respect that they deserve. I mean, their deep playoff runs have actually been more about their defense than they have been about their offense. They've consistently held teams to like 20 points in the playoffs. And I think Anarumo and guys like Trey Hendrickson, DJ Reader, their linebackers, Awuzie, Cam Taylor-Britt, their young corners playing incredible. Like they just have dudes up and down that defense paired with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, another week to get healthy from the big injury. I'm buying back into the Bengals here this week.
Okay, this is a little bit of a tough pick to make because I'm factoring in very stock market-ish. Like the Bills just played a hideous offensive football game that they should all be ashamed of, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
However, we are only a couple weeks removed from the Bills trouncing the Miami Dolphins. And I am going to continue to buy Buffalo Bills stock. I am not thrilled by their offensive coordinator. I think losing Brian Dable was a big deal for them. And the week to week roller coaster of Josh Allen, if you're not rooting for them, is like fun. Well, what Josh Allen's going to show up this week? Ultimately, though, the throw that Josh Allen made in the end zone, you're like, I'll take that. That's
Mm-hmm.
the bet. Sean McDermott is the bet. I still very much think that they are one of the three strongest teams in the AFC. And just because they played a miserable football game against the Giants, but so did San Francisco. Miami laid an egg once. Like nobody's perfect except for those 72 Dolphins who are still letting us know it. So I'm going to buy stock on the Bills still being an extremely strong football team.
Nice. I was not on my list. I'll say that. I thought about the Jets here, but I feel like they're getting a little more expensive nowadays. And I still don't know how much I believe in Zach Wilson and how much my, preseason bias on picking the Jets to go to the Super Bowl or I guess go to the AFC Championship. How much that's setting that opinion aside, but I'm very curious to see where the Jets are going here. Cleveland Browns. I'm going to buy the Cleveland Browns. I think you can get them at a discount because no one wants to buy the Browns. No one wants to admit that they're good because they traded for Deshaun Watson. And I'm definitely, going to sell this stock as soon as it makes sense for me. But I do think from an investment standpoint, this defense is a generational type of defense. And I don't say that stuff lightly. I mean, I think they are really playing at a level up there with like Legion of Boom and Saxonville and like these, defenses with a nickname basically is what it comes down to. And they need a better nickname than whatever is being suggested for them right now. But I mean, they're going to be consistently holding teams to like 13, 14 points. Deshaun Watson hasn't been great, but their offense has looked a lot worse without him than when he was out there. And I think he can be just good enough when he comes back. And I'm going to buy the Browns. And they even got a call go their way this week, which was one reason I was not high on the Browns was I felt like once the playoffs started, the NFL wouldn't allow the Browns to go on a deep playoff run because they don't want that publicity. But they got a call this week. I'll say that.
The conspiracy theories. There's only one a week that's really funny to follow, including this week of whether the fan at the Chargers game was fake. And I will say, it did look like she was in her living room, and that was maybe part of the weirdness to it. Also, I don't know how you feel about this. This is a bit of an off ramp, but like, it's weird to me when they focus on one fan right up in their face and show them over and over and over and over again. I prefer the college student section where it's one of those pictures where you can look at a bunch of different things and find something and someone's going like this or whatever.
Yeah.
One fan up close, it was very strange. And
Unless
the
it's
people
that
who,
Jets fan when his teeth were falling out. Do you see that? Or the
okay,
Eagles
yes,
fan, whichever
that
one.
was great. I also know that like teams will do stuff like have somebody get pied in the face by the mascot and the person knows it's coming and whatever, or some fan does a crazy dance so that it wasn't just some dancer who showed up to the game and decided to do it. Okay. So
Mhm.
these things do happen. That's not the point. I'm going to go with the Rams. I actually think that the Rams stock is rising here. I thought they were going to be freaking terrible this year. Aaron Donald is still murdering human beings. It's unbelievable what he can still do. Matthew Stafford's playing absolutely awesome football. And Sean McVay's doing his thing again. Also, Seattle, my Super Bowl pick. Not so much this week against Cincinnati. And, the Geno thing might be a little more roller coaster. So I'm
Mhm.
going to say that the Rams have a good chance of making the playoffs and being far better than I think we thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I like it. Last one I'll buy is the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray practicing this week, might be coming back. They got a bunch of first round picks. This one I'll probably have to buy and hold for a little bit because they still have some obvious issues. But I've been talking about this a little bit throughout our shows, and I like a lot of the stuff they're doing. I think they're well coached and are going to be a team that can, maybe even later this season start to sneak up on some people with Kyler coming back. I think they're going to do some really fun stuff offensively if he's healthy, because they've had a really fun design run game, getting Rondale Moore going. I think Hollywood Brown has actually played really well this year. They got tight ends. Zach Ertz is playing well this year. Like they got pieces. I like their play calling, and I'm going to buy them now before Kyler comes back.
I I would buy them if they told me they were not going to play Kyler Murray. If they could get him off the injured list to trade him to Minnesota, and then Minnesota sends Kirk Cousins to the Jets, and that right? Am I right?
Three-way trade.
Uh,
Yeah.
I would be my only reason for Arizona stock to go down would be if they play too well and work their way out of that tank war. And what a tank war it is. But it's not just for one guy, it's for multiple guys at the top. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that they've been way less disastrous as the other bad teams. They've been like the best bad team. They'll still continue to be pretty bad, though. If they get Kyler back, then they could win some games and make a mistake because then they
Yeah.
won't be in position to draft Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think I'm just higher on Kyler than a lot of people, and I think inside this offense, I think he could prove a lot of people wrong pretty quickly, and they can still get like the third or fourth pick and end up with some really good players. They don't necessarily need a quarterback, and they have that Texans pick too. So, yeah. All right, let's sell some teams. I'm gonna sell, at least for now, the Indianapolis Colts for this season. Um, they've had a rough week. They lose Dallas Flowers, it's a weird name to start with. He's been a starting cornerback for them, but he's been a good starting corner in a position group that they've desperately needed guys to step up. On paper, coming into the year, that cornerback room looked awful, and he was playing really well. He's going to miss the rest of the season. They just got news that Grover Stewart, their beast of a nose tackle, is going to miss 6 weeks with a suspension, and their run defense has been probably their biggest strength so far this year. So that's going to hurt. Anthony Richardson, likely, well, he's going to miss a lot of time, if not the whole season, basically was the report this week before the game. And then Gardner Minshew turned back into a pumpkin this week and played one of the worst starts we'll see all season. So I think I like a lot of the things they have built for the future, but for this season, I think they could really shoot down.
You got to change our graphic to selling because that was a
Thank
very
you.
bad buy job if you were but no, I had them written down as a potential, but since you drafted them, I am going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Mike Tomlin is still a great coach, and you'll never push me off that. A guy who can get Duck Hodges to the playoffs, who always has a violent defense. His teams are well prepared. They win a lot of football games that you go, what? 14-7 or what, right? The games that don't seem like they should have been played this century. But the way Kenny Pickett is playing is disturbing. Their offense is disturbing. That they haven't changed offensive coordinators. No one's open. That's the crazy thing. Kenny Pickett's not playing well. No one's open. They don't use the middle of the field. It's very strange. That could be also another part of our offensive, defensive, the struggles there. There's some offensive coordinators who are having a rough go of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a hard run for a defense to just carry them week after week after week. And if you can't score at all, then I'm not really buying the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. If they get to the end of the year and Pickett has 7 touchdowns and 12 picks and they go 9-8, like, is that good? Or what are you doing there in the future?
Yeah.
Not really short term or long term buying them.
Yeah. They're kind of stuck. Like, they're a safe buy, or they're a safe sell, I suppose, because they're probably not going any higher than they are right now at 3-2. And that's kind of my thought process on this next team too, is the New Orleans Saints, where they're 3-3. And I'm looking at this like, do I think they'll finish better than 500 this year? And is it going to go anywhere? Like, no, I'm going to sell them at basically as high as I think this is going to go. Derek Carr continues to be the worst red zone quarterback in the NFL, maybe ever. Their defense is fine, but a little bit older in their front seven. I don't see a huge future with their front. And then their offensive line is horrible, man. And they've made some really bad decisions with that O-line that have really set them back. Like the Trevor Penning pick, they traded a future first round pick to go and get that guy. Like they didn't learn from their mistakes with the Marcus Davenport trade where they gave up a future first. They gave their first round pick to the Eagles, which turned into Jalen Carter in their conference. Like they made a horrible decision there. They paid Cesar Ruiz, who's horrible. They still have Andrews Pete on roster. They've really destroyed their offensive line, and you bring in a quarterback that is as bad as handling a pass rush as anyone in the league. It's like, where the hell are they going? So I'm just getting out. If I had any Saints stock, they're 3-3. They've got to that point, luckily, and I'm getting out of New Orleans.
Can we sell all of the NFC South? I mean, there's after Ritter turned back into a October pumpkin last week, and I always love when coaches talk about, it was pretty good outside of the worst plays. Like, that kind of matters. Like, that's the whole how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
The
like,
6
it was great
bad plays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the whole league is defined by good and bad plays, not 7-yard checkdowns. So, okay, that sounds like a coach who knows that it's not good and has no other answer. So I was thinking about them, but they still do have enough talent. And I decided to land instead on the Tennessee Titans, who I just don't see. They've drafted 2 quarterbacks. Both of them can't play. I mean, Will Levis, it's early to judge, but from what I saw of him in joint practices versus the Vikings, did not look like an NFL quarterback to me. I'm not sure where that goes. Malik Willis definitely cannot play. That I fear for Malik Willis. Like he does not get rid of the football, and that's a dude who gets destroyed and gets injuries. What's the answer? What's the long-term answer? You paid Derrick Henry. I see why, but it wasn't a good decision. They have a great defensive line. What does it matter? The roster's got a ton of holes. They don't have any weapons. The quarterback situation is screwed. I got nothing except for Mike Vrabel would win a fight against almost every other coach in the league. That's the only thing they have going for
them. I'm a little bit more optimistic about their future just because I think this was going to be a transition season for them. But you definitely make some good points. Like they have really been trying to recover from a lot of mistakes that John Robinson made as the GM that they fired. And yeah, I mean, they've tried to repair the receiver room with DeAndre Hopkins, and they got the quarterback issues. I'm very curious to see where they are a year from now and how much the coaching can kind of like raise the bar a little bit. So I'm a little bit more optimistic, and I don't know how many people are buying them right now anyway. So I'm going to hold my Titans stock personally. Let's see, who else did I have on that? Oh, I'm going to sell the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to sell them. I'm getting out. Jalen Hurts,
overreaction.
$56 million. Maybe an overreaction. We talked about this earlier. This one's definitely bold and could easily bite me in the ass. They could easily go win the Super Bowl this year, and I regret this. But am I going to be able to sell them for much higher than I can right now? That's kind of my point. You got Lane Johnson and Kelsey on that O-line are getting up there in age. Your 2 cornerbacks are Bradbury and Slay, who are on the wrong side of 30. Slay's getting hurt out there. They've lost their offensive coordinator, who I think was doing a lot of heavy lifting last year. Hurts isn't playing as well. Their upcoming schedule is horrendous. They have to play like all the best teams in the league. It's crazy when you look at it. So I'm just going to sell them at 5-1. And I'll take my money because they're clearly one of the best teams in the NFL, but I don't know if they're necessarily if their stock is going to go up. So that's strictly a stock market play. I'm not saying they couldn't win the Super Bowl this year, but if they do, am I going to get more for them then than I do now? I don't know. So I'm just going to get out now.
I think as far as a stock market play, if you're trying to buy something high that's about to fall, a short sell, is that what it's called? That would be, I don't know if that's what it's called. I've heard that term before, but that makes sense. It makes sense because teams that go to the Super Bowl don't go back like the next year. And there's a reason for that. One of the reasons is they play a hellacious schedule most of the time, which makes you respect Peyton Manning winning 13 games every year even
Mhm.
more because he was always playing the first place schedule. But yeah. So this is one where I was thinking like who would be the hot take? Who would be the top team? You picked the right one. Is it is it Jacksonville because Trevor Lawrence got banged up
Mm.
and they just have not been impressive, really? I was trying to pick a team that was really good because it's so obvious to be like, oh, well, I'm not buying stock in the Patriots because they have no
Yeah.
future at all. I mean, that's harsh. And all those bottom teams, if somebody gets Caleb Williams, it could change. The other team that I did consider to troll you was the Green Bay Packers. And Jordan Love's been very uneven, which is a big compliment to him. You could also use the word not good. But, you might defend that one as you want to do, but I don't know that I wanna pick Jacksonville, so I think I'll just pick the Packers and say they're not
All
going
right.
to be a good team this year.
Here's what I'll say about that is I think Matt LaFleur's stock has also been going down lately. I think a lot of his personnel usage and his staff decisions and some of his game management stuff, it just and it's not just because Jordan Love is struggling, which he is. I mean, that's another big reason you would sell is he played a horrible game on Monday Night Football. But a lot of the stuff Packers fans are complaining about now are the same things we complained about with Aaron Rodgers last year too. So it's like I still like LaFleur. I think he's a great play designer, but I am starting to have questions on like, does he have the right CEO skills to run a football team and make some of the tough calls that he has to make? So I don't hate it. I just I don't know how low their stock is. I think their stock is pretty low right now. I don't know if you're getting a lot for the Packers, the youngest team in the NFL that have also, shown they have one of the best D lines in the league, some young playmakers that they've been really hurt. I don't know. I think you might consider buying some of the aspects of their team too. So I could see the argument though. All right, let's get to our week 7 preview draft edition. You cool if we go like 5 minutes over this week
Oh,
and
that's
hit this?
fine.
Cool.
That's fine because 'cause we've
Um,
got a lot of football games being played.
yes, absolutely. Well, you were
We
trashing.
we've been struggling. We've been struggling. These slates have not been good. There's so many bad football teams, man. And even this week, I was like, it's like, is there a good game? So it's not great.
Yeah,
We'll
you were
try.
definitely trashing it on the intro. So we get to look forward to some good football. I'm gonna give you the first pick if you want it. You could defer it back to me and take the snake if you'd like.
No, I think deferring is a good idea for kickoffs, but probably not for picking these. And I'm gonna go, gosh, this is kind of just, I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it would have been more of a debate if last night had gone differently between Chargers, Kansas City, and Miami, Philadelphia. Miami, Philadelphia is the only real matchup of Titans this week. So I will take that as my first pick.
I'm gonna disagree. I think Lions Ravens would have actually been my number one pick
Okay. I like it. Well,
because
entertainment.
yeah, and I'm a little biased there because of how I've gone at it with Lions fans so much, but I really don't I really believe the Lions haven't had a big test that they've won yet. I think the Seahawks game was the best test they had and they lost. The Chiefs game, no Kelsey, no Chris Jones, and even a bigger deal than that was the drops were against them that were just unforced errors. Kadarius Toney literally gives them a possession and a touchdown. You had multiple other drops that were just wide open receivers just not catching the football. It had nothing to do with Detroit. So Lions fans always like to say we went into Arrowhead and beat the 5-1 Chiefs. I'm like, no, the hell you didn't. Those weren't the Chiefs that we've seen for the last 5 weeks. And you can call me a hater or whatever, but that's just the way my football mind works, whether it's the Lions or the Jags or the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's just the way I saw that game was Detroit didn't play that great and they won. And it just happens sometimes. So I think this game against Baltimore is a chance for them to really impress me. And I like the Lions a lot. I might even be rooting for the Lions in this game. But I do think against a Ravens defense that has really heated up lately, they're going to present some challenges for Jared Goff and Lamar. Lamar has been balling out this year. He's doing it despite his wide receivers, but this should be a pretty good matchup against a Detroit secondary that I question a little bit, especially after Sutton got hurt for the year. So there's a lot of interesting matchups here. I think Eagles Dolphins is going to be incredibly fun to watch, and it's a great first pick. But I think we feel pretty good about what those teams are. Whereas these are two teams that I think are trying to make a statement that they are Super Bowl favorite types of teams, and I can't wait for this one.
I guess I want to see the Ravens sort of prove it to me weekly
Mhm.
because it's been very uneven. I mean, when you lose to the Steelers 2 weeks ago and you can't catch any footballs, like I don't know. The Ravens have been playing a little more ugly football. I was thinking high entertainment value at the very top of Eagles and Dolphins because it could be complete madness. But I'll take it back to say it's the only matchup of Titans. That's a good pick as well.
Okay. And then I'm gonna go. It does drop off after that. How about
Yes, it does.
there's still some good ones here though. Um, we're gonna go Falcons Bucks, NFC South. Probably, I mean, those are the two top graded ranked teams for me in the NFC South. How can Desmond Ritter hang against this Bucks defense, and can Baker turn it around from probably his worst game last week as well? High stakes in the NFC South, which isn't necessarily exciting, but should be a good close battle with a little bit of a division rivalry aspect there.
That's a scoregami game waiting to happen, like
Yeah,
19-12 or
18.
something. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll pick Kansas City and Los Angeles still. They usually play very exciting games against each other. Justin Herbert's got to bounce
Mhm.
back, and someday we'll talk for a whole hour about Justin Herbert because I am so fascinated by a man with that much talent who every time I see play great, I'm like, I'm sorry, Justin, I didn't mean to question you. And then last night I'm like, why is Justin Herbert
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins? I
yeah,
don't know. But him versus Mahomes, always great entertainment. I'll take that one.
yeah. I probably glossed over that, to be honest, with my second pick there. That's going to be a fun one. Wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers pull that one out and just kind of backs again for whatever criticism we've had of them. It feels like in the last 20 games or so, when their back has been against the wall, they've kind of bounced back, only to disappoint once again. So yeah, it should be good. I mean, I am interested to see how the Packers bounce back, but I'm obviously biased on that one at Denver. Um, yeah, man, it does drop off. There's so many bad teams in the league this year that it's like there's just bad games. How about Vikings Niners? I'm gonna go
Yeah.
Monday Night
I-
Football.
If all the Niners don't play, like if Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, everybody who got banged up last week doesn't play, then sure, I guess so. I mean, any Vikings game can be entertaining. That's what
Mhm.
we've proven over the last number of years is that uh, no matter how good the other team is, they'll hold it to one score loss. No matter how bad the other team is, the Vikings will keep them in the game and win by one score. Like that's who they are. So maybe
Yeah,
I was thinking Pittsburgh Rams. It's
yeah.
not a good slate. How about just Giants Washington for the calamity?
God, the Giants are so hard to watch right now. I do think like Tyrod Taylor right now is their best option. Like when their O line is that bad with the Giants, you got to get a guy that can run around and make some stuff happen. So I am curious, like if and when Daniel Jones is ready, do they even like put him back in and make their investment look even worse? That's at least interesting to follow. But at least the like primetime games this week are pretty good. We didn't even talk about the Thursday night game, which isn't bad. Saints Jags, two injured quarterbacks though, so we'll see. But yeah, I think the primetime games this week should keep us a lot more entertained than last week. So that's good at least.
We'll
But
get Billy Joe Tolliver versus Byron Leftwich in that game.
Jesus, little Taysom Hill quarterback action on Thursday night. Jameis,
Aaron Brooks,
Jameis is fun.
what's Aaron Brooks up to? Can he come play? Him and David Garrard match up?
Wow, Gerard was fun. All right. Let's get out of here. We're going off the rails a little bit. Thank you everybody for watching. Matthew, thanks for joining us yet again. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
Buy my book. That's always at the end of every show, I guess. Football is a
There you go.
numbers game on Amazon. Go check it out. No, what I love about this season so far is that every week we've thought we had a good handle on what's going on, and then every week the football gods have come in and said, no, you don't.
Just you wait.
So yeah, and that's what makes it interesting is every week we're like, well, I thought that, and then I was right, and then I was wrong, and then now I'm kind of right again. So it's been
Yep.
really fun to do this with you, and I think that's the best part.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.